basically Antonio Garofoli started to produce wine and as well some pasta. He opened an osteria on the way to the Church of Loreto. So this was our beginning long time ago. So let's say our first clients, drinkers, were the pilgrims going to the church long time ago. And this is the reason why we are here in Castelfidardo, famous for the accordions actually. I don't know if you knew that. Here there is the capital of the accordions, the instrument, and the proximity to the Church of Loreto. So this was the very beginning of the family. In 1901, Gioacchino Garofoli, the son of Antonio, founded legally Garofoli Winery. So in fact, we refer officially, we start from 1901, and this year we are celebrating 125 years.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to Le Marche and to the small artisan town of Castelfidardo near the shrine of Loreto to meet my guest, Gianluca Garofoli, Managing Director of the world-renowned Casa Vinicola Garofoli. Buongiorno, Gianluca. It's really nice to meet you here this morning. Many thanks for being my guest today. How are you?
Buongiorno, Mark. It's my pleasure to talk to you today. Feeling very, very good and always to talk about Garofoli Winery and moreover Marche region, my beloved little region, as you said, in the center of Italy.
Okay, well, it's a beautiful region. It's a region I particularly love visiting. In fact, I was in your winery just a month or so ago when I brought a group to you for a visit and a wine tasting, something I do every couple of years for my Gastronomic Le Marche tour, and it's always a pleasure to visit you. We also met earlier in the year at Opera Wine, just before Vinitaly. Opera Wine, of course, is the Wine Spectator's exclusive gathering of some 130, I think it was this year, of Italy's best wine producers from all over the country. And it's a really, truly unique event and an opportunity for us to taste and speak directly with the wine producers themselves, who you're pouring your own wine. So it's a great annual event, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's a fantastic venue, fantastic organization, and fantastic selection of producers and people attending the event. Even for us, it's really exceptional. Even because you don't have all these great wines in the same room available for tasting. At the same time, to meet people coming from around the world, it's absolutely a great format that I love. And we are very fortunate to be part of the Opera Wine now. I think it's about 8 or 9 years, or maybe a little bit less than 10. So we are very, very proud and very happy always to be part of the show.
Yeah, it is a unique event and a wonderful experience. Now, Gianluca, you travel all over the world to bring your wines to global markets. And I imagine that one of the first things you often have to do is explain where you are from. Le Marche is still very much an undiscovered region of Italy, isn't it? I'm not exactly sure why, but take us to Le Marche. Tell us about your region. Tell us about Castelfidardo, where you're located. Our listeners are all over the world, and many won't have been to Le Marche. So tell them what Le Marche is like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true. I traveled the world many times, even in the airplanes with other people not in the in the wine industry. They ask me, "Where are you from?" And then, I say, I'm coming from Le Marche. And they say, where are the Le Marche? So I say, in the center of Italy, next to Umbria, on the other side of Tuscany. I start to explain where we are, because in fact, Marche region is not a well-known region. It's a small, beautiful region in the center of Italy, facing the Adriatic Sea. We are in front of Croatia. As we said, we say are, we use the plural verb. In fact, we say Le Marche. It's the only plural region in Italy. from north to south, from Pesaro to Ascoli Piceno. In the past, they put us together, even though we came from different roots, let's say, different origins, and they made one single region called Le Marche. This is a region where we don't know what does it mean over tourism. That is, is very popular now in the world. We don't know as well what does it mean in globalization, because in fact, not having a lot of tourists or exchange of other people from other countries, it's a region that maintained a lot his origins and roots and the traditional culture of Le Marche. So this is something that nowadays, traveling the world, I see sometimes some cities or towns or regions that they changed their soul in a certain way. For sure, Marche region is not that case. It's a region that still reminds Italy like in the 60s, in the 70s, a region that was in the past under the state of the Pope, a region that is a kind of a mix of spirituality with all these little towns on top of the hills and the mountains, because we have to say that Marche region is composed by 97% of mountains and rolling hills and just a 3% of flat area next to the coastline. So you have all these mountains that has a lot of spirituality, these little medieval towns with the monasteries and these curvy ways going to the seaside, where you can find some small fishermen towns, and the capital of Marche region, that is Ancona, that has a kind of 2,000 years of history, was founded by the Greeks. So it has an incredible history as a kind of a east gate of Italy going to the Middle East and to Asia. The famous trade with China, discovered by Marco Polo. So it's really a region that has a lot of history. We don't have in this region like a major city like Florence, like Rome, that or Venice, that attracts people, but the beauty is widespread all over the region, and there is a kind. I think there is something for everybody. As I said, in the seaside or in the mountains or historical towns like Ascoli Piceno, that is a gem of Marche region, or Urbino. I think that with these rolling green hills, these houses lost in the middle of nowhere, but with the beautiful views and the little osterias next to you, still with mama and papa inside preparing some food. I think that traveling the world in the Marche region, I think you can find a lot of peace of your soul, and at the same time you can enjoy a lot and have fun almost everywhere in the region.
Well, I think that's a great description and a real reason for our listeners to make a point of visiting Le Marche. It's not that easy to reach in terms of airports. That might be one reason. And of course, the mountains that separate Umbria and Tuscany from Le Marche can seem a barrier. When I visit Le Marche, I fly to Rome and then we drive over through, just touching into Abruzzo and then to Ascoli Piceno, which you've mentioned. It's one of my favorite small cities in all of Italy. And we don't have to fight crowds. We don't have to, it's become crazy in some parts of Italy, the popular and over popular areas. So it's one of my very favorite regions to visit, from south, Ascoli Piceno on the border with Abruzzo, right up to the north. And of course, these rolling hills that you mentioned, Gianluca, this means that there are wines, good wines, varied wines from the entire region. Now, Gianluca, you and your sister, Caterina, who I met recently when I was in the winery, are the fifth generation in the Garofoli family wine business. Can you share with us something of your family story? Because it goes back to 1871, is that right? Just 10 years after the unification of Italy.
Exactly, Mark. In fact, with Garofoli Winery, we have this connection of the spirituality of Marche region and the same time the other attitude of the winemaking and the restaurants and the Italian lifestyle. In fact, as you said, Garofoli was founded in 1871 by Antonio Garofoli, who was a soldier for the Piedmontese army, and he fought for them and during the unification of Italy, because as you know, Italy was divided, as I said before, in the center of Italy under the state of the Pope, the north east under the Austrians, the French, the Spanish in the south. So Italy was unified. Antonio Garofoli received a reward to sell salt at that time, a license. So he needed a license. With that license, he started to make some money, and he basically bought this house that we still have in front of us at the winery in a major way to go to the Church of Loreto. The Church of Loreto is very important for Christianity because there is the house of the Virgin Mary inside of Loreto. So basically, Antonio Garofoli started to produce wine and as well some pasta. He opened an osteria on the way of the pilgrimage going to the Church of Loreto. So this was our beginning long time ago. And I would say that even today, the Church of Loreto is very popular because it's one of the, as I said, major churches for Christianity. So let's say our first clients, drinkers, were the pilgrims going to the church long time ago, and this is the reason why we are here in Castelfidardo, famous for the accordions. Actually, I don't know if you knew that. Here there is the capital of the accordions, the instrument, and the proximity to the Church of Loreto. So this was the very beginning of the family. In 1901, Gioacchino Garofoli, the son of Antonio, founded legally a Garofoli Winery. So in fact, we refer officially, we start from 1901, and this year we are celebrating 125 years. But we say the fifth generation starting from Antonio Garofoli, from the pilgrims. So this is the reason of our beginning, that, as you know, passed the two world wars, and then we started to bottle the wines just after the Second World War, 1947. That was very unusual, this fact, a long time ago, and this allowed us not to sell only locally the wines, but to sell them all over Italy. We used to have 7 warehouses in Italy to manage the distribution a long time ago. And moreover, we started to write our last name, Garofoli, in the bottles. So people could really recognize Garofoli Winery as a producer all over Italy, and in the 50s all over Europe and in the world, with the famous amphora of Verdicchio. So it's really a family, my family, that started long time ago making wine, selling wine. We didn't have other jobs or other business side businesses. We were only focusing on what we had here.
Okay, that's such a fascinating story now, Gianluca. I didn't know that Antonio Garofoli was a Piedmontese soldier. Of course, this was during the unification of Italy, when the Savoia, the Piedmontese army, was fighting against the army of the Papal States in this aim of uniting the country, and that's really fascinating to hear. But I'm also interested that, as you say, the importance of this great shrine, the Basilica of Loreto, which even today still attracts millions of pilgrims from all over the world. The devout coming to Loreto to see within this great basilica the house of the Virgin Mary, which sits within the midst of this great basilica. And I guess, Gianluca, pilgrims are thirsty. When millions of people are coming, that clearly was a very important part of the market and must continue to be so today. I know when I visit Loreto, the bars around the piazza are always full, and people are perhaps having a glass of Garofoli wines after they visited. Is that still an important part of?
We hope so. We hope so that drinking Garofoli wines. Yes, absolutely, Mark. It's very important to us, and I have to mention that we are in a very special area because there is not only the church, the Basilica of Loreto. We have another town next to us that is called Recanati, that in Italy is very famous because Giacomo Leopardi, one of the major Italian poet, was born here, and at the same time we are in the Conero Riviera, that is a beautiful mountain that slopes into the seaside, that creates an amazing scenario, an amazing area. So we are really in a good spot of the region because we have different incredible attractions of the region. In fact, we have to say that our winery is just a couple of kilometers away from the seaside. So it's this is another good aspect. And you were talking about before connection. We are not far away from the major connections that connects the Marche region to other regions of Italy. So this is a good spot for welcoming not only the pilgrims but thirsty drinkers and lovers of
Yes,
Garofoli wines.
that's right. The wine pilgrims. That's right.
The wine
You,
pilgrims.
yeah. You mentioned also an important part of the story of wine in Le Marche, which is the amphora bottle. This very distinctive bottle, which harks back to the Greek, I guess, the Greek origins in Ancona, which became a symbol of wine from Le Marche, and in particular of a grape variety I'd like to discuss in more detail, the Verdicchio.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. This is Verdicchio is the probably the most well known and the most important and unique grape varietal of Marche region. It's a white grape varietal that makes this incredible wine, the Verdicchio. This wine became famous in the 50s. First of all, because it was one of the very first white wine in Italy with 100% with the same varietal. In the past, it was very common to mix and blend different grape varietals. So this was just, first of all, a selection of 100% of one grape varietal. So it was very unique. And secondly, the shape of the bottle. So this bottle was invented by this architect from Milan, thinking about the trade, the commerce on the Adriatic Sea, from imaging these Greek amphoras coming from the Middle East to Ancona harbor, and from Ancona to the Middle East. And this bottle became immediately popular. The wine became incredibly popular. So this bottle opened the opportunity for Marche region producers to sell the wines not only in Italy but all over the world. I would say that in those years in Europe and just starting in the United States. In fact, it's something that makes us very proud here at Garofoli, that we have some bottles, like we have one in the entrance of the winery, dated 1959, and this bottle is already written in English, saying Verdicchio is a delightful Italian white wine. So we started to export our wines and translate the labels in the 50s. I don't think many areas in Italy can say that.
Yeah.
This was thanks to the amphora bottle.
Well, that's really really interesting, and of course the amphora. This was in the time of the economic boom in Italy, and the amphora I would say compares to the Chianti Fiasco at the same time. That beautiful straw covered bulbous bottle that made Chianti famous and well known in trattoria and Italian restaurants around the world. But like in Tuscany, in Le Marche, your family and other producers have moved beyond the amphora now, because this Verdicchio grape is such a characterful grape. To me, it's one of the most fascinating and interesting of all of Italy's white native grape varieties. And you make, in fact, a full range of Verdicchio wines that range from simpler wines to enjoy by the seaside to very well structured wines. Tell us what makes Verdicchio such a great grape.
The easiest reply, Mother Nature.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because here we have really two areas, Matelica and Iesi. They are the only two DOC and DOCG appellations in the world with 100% Verdicchio. And these grapes of Verdicchio makes incredible wines with a lot of minerality, sapidity, salinity. At the same, as you said, they can be young and fresh, that maybe they recalls some salinity from the Albariños, or sometimes they can have some least contact and can age for 10, 15, or even 20 years. At the same time, we started in 1974 as Garofoli Winery, the first one in the Marche region to make Metodo Classico with Verdicchio 100%. So this was a challenge because actually in those years there was only amphora bottle. That meant simple Verdicchio and easy to make, and to think even about to make a Metodo Classico with Verdicchio was a challenge. So Verdicchio grape varietal is absolutely very flexible, very grape varietal. You can make a lot of different wines, and so this gives a wide opportunities to match with food, and exactly a lot of opportunities to drink in different weathers, conditions, hot, summer, winter. So we really love Verdicchio, and as you said, Garofoli in the 70s, the end of the 70s, exactly my father Gianfranco and my uncle Carlo, the winemaker, they thought Verdicchio is much more than amphora, and they started to select the clones of Verdicchio with other producers, and they started to dream a different way for Verdicchio. The first bottle outside of the amphora shape was our wine called Macrina that we still make. And this was in a Bordeaux bottle. And the idea of my father and my uncle was, drink me not because of the shape of the bottle, but because of the wine inside. And that wine was a wine with a lot of character, and was the first brick of the new house that nowadays is a castle of of great wines and great producers. So absolutely, this wine that nowadays, for example, people love to say that Verdicchio is a wine with a lot of with longevity, and they point to this characteristic that is absolutely important. But for me, it's more important to point that Verdicchio can be young and fresh, can be a great example of aging white wine, can be the bubbles, and not focus just one side of the grape varietal. So for me, it's bigger the world of Verdicchio rather just a longer and aging white wine.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was with you recently, we tasted the Macrina, the Podium, which is one of my favorite wines, and the Fiorese. You produce many more than that from the Verdicchio, but those three really show the different styles that can be created from this great grape. Just explain those wines, and the Podium as well, Macrina Podium and the Fiorese.
Yes, absolutely. These are the most famous wines, let's say, especially Podium of Garofoli Winery. But Mark, when you have 125 years, the famous wines they depend on the age, on the time. For my grandfather, maybe he would say another wine. For my uncle, the Podium. For example, I would say that in the last years, maybe I would say that other wines are coming out in terms of importance and opening new ways, like for example the rosé, because nowadays everybody makes rosé, but not in the Marche region. That is a part of a long, long history, and in fact we just received last year from the European Community the appellation of DOCG. Okay, so it's the second or the
Okay.
third
Yeah.
DOCG in Italy for rosé. So there are not 1 million of DOCG, but they choose Marche region and the Conero area with Montepulciano, that is the other very important grape varietal of the region. And this is something unique and something that you cannot see in many regions. Think about maybe it's the second DOCG appellation. So, for example, the Comaros, that is a wine that we started to make in the 60s, is one of our most important wine in Italy and in the world. So this is something that I would like to say, because we make 4 different rosé. Garofoli Winery is very specialized on rosé wines. We have vineyards just dedicated to make Montepulcianos for rosé. We do Metodo Classico rosé, we do a pet nut rosé, we do what I call the winter rosé. So basically, we age the rosé for 1 year and we start to drink it in November. So the opposite of what is like
Uh-huh.
a Provence rosé. So this is, for example, a new wave, not for Garofoli, but for the world of production, and it is very important. At the same time, for example, we have a new wine that is called the Blue Nami, that was named after the name of tsunami. So it's kind of a new wave, but not destructive. It's more, is nicer. The Blue Nami, Nami in Japanese language means a wave, and is a Montepulciano made thinking about Gamay, just to give you an idea. And is kind of a revolution. Is a Nami, is a Blue Nami, as I said. So we are really innovating a lot of wines. We are rethinking about a lot of wines. And this is, I think, super important because, as I said before, for the Macrina or for the Metodo Classico Verdicchio, those wines were not existing before. So that was something new, something that was disruptive. And Garofoli, if we want to reach 150 or 200 years, we need to change the rules during our decades of production wines.
Actually, that's really interesting because you've discussed the evolution of wine in Le Marche after the war, from selling wine in bulk to being among the first to bottle wine, and then of course the success of the amphora, but going beyond that to wines with more structure, and now also you're now looking to the future for new wines. Actually, I tried the Blue Nami when I was with you. I think Filippo brought that out to try, and it was a really
Yes.
wonderful, wonderful wine to try. Tell us a little bit more about Montepulciano, this great grape, red grape of the Adriatic coast. And Conero is really this Monte Conero, which overlooks the Bay of Porto Novo and that beautiful seaside, is really the northernmost point where Montepulciano, one will find it. Is that right? And from there it descends. Of course, it's very important in Abruzzo and into Molise. But the Conero mountain is a very important point of reference for Montepulciano.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. Everybody in the world, they think Montepulciano is just from Abruzzo because obviously it is included in the name of the appellation Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. But in reality, you said perfectly, it is a stretch that starts from the north of Apulia. Let's say from Bari, Montepulciano, you go up to Molise, Abruzzo, and you reach Monte Conero, so it's the center of Marche region, next to the seaside. That is the northest area to grow Montepulciano. Historically, because Montepulciano is a late harvest grape varietal. And I remember, let's say 20, 25 years ago when I was a kid, we started to harvest the Montepulciano in the second part of October. It was very difficult to reach the sugar content to make a good red wine. So to harvest in the end of October, you needed a good weather in October. That's why here is the northest point because the Monte Conero is it's kind of the edge of Mediterranean weather and subcontinental weather. It's on the edge where you can still have a good end of October with sun, something that you need to have a good harvest of Montepulciano. So historically, this is the northest point. And it's just, as you said, as you mentioned, the Porto Novo. It's a beautiful, it's a natural park. It's unique. You can only have, I think, Gargano in Apulia as a mountain that slopes to the sea. You can have the Conero, the San Bartolo in north of Marche. Very, very few points in the Adriatic coast in Italy that are special like Monte Conero. You have the elevation, you have the chalk soil, white rocks. As well, you have the white towns like Numana, Sirolo, beautiful gems on top of the Conero. This is an area that has a proximity to the sea, and from what they said, historically they planted Montepulciano because Montepulciano has a thick skin, and being next to the water with a lot of humidity, you needed this kind of varietal, and that's why they choose Montepulciano rather than Sangiovese in this area. So basically, it's a special area to grow Montepulciano, where historically we used to make powerful red wines. But as you tasted the Blue Nami or the Piancarda, another historical wine that we made since the 60s, it has a lot of elegance. if you don't do too much extraction, you can really have great, elegant red wines with the typical traditional big barrels. So I think that they really deserve to be considered for a tasting and a drink, and for sure to visit Monte Conero, because it's, I think, one of the best part of Marche region.
Yeah, it's an area I really love, and as you say, Montepulciano expresses itself beautifully on the terroir of the mountain. Piancarda, that's one of my favorite of your red wines. Just tell us a little bit about Piancarda.
Piancarda is, first of all, a geographical area. So it's basically is a crew inside of the natural park of Conero. My grandfather and his brother, they bought this piece of land that is very tough to work, because it's a kind of a 50% is chalk, so it's very poor in terms of water or other things that you can find in the ground. But this area is just in the middle of the forest of the natural park, and when you say biodiversity, you don't have any cities, you don't have any factories, you don't see nothing. It's just in the middle of this natural park, and it's absolutely a blessed place. And obviously, the yield per hectare is very low in this area, because you cannot stress the vines. You need to have a very aged vines to make a great wines. It's a place that I really love for making wines, but at the same time to take a walk, or just to do a picnic in the middle of the vineyards. It's just phenomenal, especially when you have the sundown in the Camerano area. It's just wonderful.
Okay. Now, we've been discussing the variety of that Le Marche offers. I think one of the most interesting things, as you were just noting about the Piancarda vineyard, is Le Marche isn't one of the wine regions that is entirely specialized to monoculture, just to vines. But the beauty of Le Marche to me is that you have vineyards mixed with fields, maybe growing fruit trees and wheat, and the countryside is really still mixed as it used to be throughout Italy. And of course, this means that Le Marche also has a wonderful gastronomy, and it's a gastronomy that reflects the two faces of the region that you've mentioned: the seaside with fantastic seafood from the Adriatic, and a more robust cuisine moving inland. So, can you tell us, perhaps describe some of the very typical foods of Le Marche that every visitor who comes to Le Marche should try and sample, and the wines, your wines, that pair best with some of these typical foods?
Actually, Mark, you're totally right. In fact, from mountains to the sea, Marche region is a paradise of flavors. Because, in fact, one of the most difficult questions to ask is, which is the typical food of Le Marche? It's impossible to answer.
Yeah,
I would say that the most traditional dishes that are recognized of Marche region, let's say a dish from the inland is the Vincis Grassi. That is a kind of lasagna. So, you have the ragu sauce of beef and chicken, and layers of, I don't know how to say in English, the lasagna sheets, the
yeah,
different
yeah.
layers.
The sheets, yeah, the
Yeah,
different,
okay, if it's
yeah,
correct.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And this is for sure a very classic and traditional dish for the Sunday lunch that we still have with the families, okay? And I would match with this a very good Rosso Conero that could be the Piancarda or could be the Blue Nami. Then if we move, let's say, on the seaside, obviously it's very famous, the seafood, the Adriatic seafood, the seafood salad, the fried fish, the typical spaghetti and clams. In the Conero area, since there are no rivers, there is no pollution, no cities, we have one of the, I think, the only DOP mussel in Italy that is very small, called the Lemoscioli, that is very good. And it's very famous, I don't know if you know the brodetto, if you ever tasted the brodetto. So brodetto is a typical of Marche, is a fish soup that was historically prepared with the unsold fishes directly on the boats of the fishermen. So they used to prepare the sauce with tomato, and to use these unsold fishes and prepare this fish soap. So this is we have different brodettos in the market. There is a famous one is from Ancona, but there is one is from Porto Recanati with a little zafferanel, and there is one in San Benedetto in the south. And obviously, with this, I would match a great rosé wine, for example. We were talking about the new DOCG, and obviously with spaghetti and clams, of a bowl of clams, I would match perfectly the minerality of a Verdicchio. Could be still, it could be in bubbles. And obviously, the last thing that I need to mention, otherwise my friend from Ascoli will kill me, is the Oliva Ascolana. Obviously, the
Yes.
Ascolana olive oil that is a typical olive from the region of Marche, is big. And so they take it and they fry it outside and they fill it with meat inside. So this is very, very famous and typical of Marche region, especially from Ascoli. So obviously in Ascoli they say they make the best and the only, so they not don't accept all the other parts, but is famous all over the region. And I would match some bubbles of Verdicchio, for example, with the olive ascolana.
Okay, well, that's a very, very good overview. And I know that when we visited you, we always have, with your wines, we have a special salami, the ciauscolo.
Yes, you're right. I was forgetting the most famous. Yes, yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Is a super famous kind of salame, but salami is let's say hard. The charusco is soft and in terms of the tasting profile. So it's absolutely great solution that I would match probably some lacrima di moro d'alba is very small DOC appellation or a blue nami rosso conero with this salame.
The
Ciauscolo.
Lacrima di Moro d'Alba. This is an aromatic red wine. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a joke of Mother Nature, let's say, because I think is probably the most aromatic red grape variety that we can taste in the entire world. Smells of roses, violets, light in body, and very very aromatic. Basically, it is a red Gewürztraminer. If you want to,
Yes, it's
make a comparison.
extraordinary. Would you drink that slightly chilled?
Yes, 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 as I do with the Blue Nami as well. With this kind of,
Uh-huh.
this is the new wave, a little bit chilled red wines, nice
Okay.
acidity and 12% alcohol. This is what we are proposing to our customers.
I
Yes,
guess just really trying to maintain freshness in the wines then.
yes, yes, absolutely. Freshness and a new way of drinking wines and thinking about wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Gianluca, I know from my own experience that that Garofoli is very hospitable, very welcoming to visitors, and you have a visitor center. Tell us a little bit about hospitality. Can our listeners who are all over the world visit you when they make their way to Le Marche?
So first of all, yes, absolutely. Everybody are really welcome at Garofoli Winery, and we are as I said before, in a very special spot, so you can really drink the wines, enjoy Garofoli Winery. At the same time, we have a lot of attraction around us, and this is the word that created by my sister Caterina. The hospitality, she's really focused on that, and she created a lot of experiences, a lot of different tours and tastings, visit of the winery. And a long time ago, I think now it's about 20 years, she created Garofoli in art. So basically, we always have painters, poets, or people that really want to show their piece of art at the winery, so you can really come and visit and see and taste the wines. So we have absolutely a great attention to the people that come here, because we always say we are a family. So for us, when you come at the winery, it is like the same that you come in our house, at our home, because this is a family winery. So I think that with the feeling we want to give to the people coming at the Garofoli is really to come to visit the family.
Well, that's definitely the feeling I've had when I've visited you, and I really recommend it to our listeners. I know that many of our listeners will be able to find Garofoli wines almost wherever in the world they're located, but the best way to gain a greater understanding and to enjoy the wines is to actually visit the winery itself in Castelfidardo. Gianluca, I certainly look forward to my next visit. And until then, many thanks for being my guest today. It's been a real pleasure to hear the family story of Garofoli and to learn more about your wines. Grazie mille.
Grazie, Mark. It is really a pleasure to talk to you, and with your experience of traveling and wine, really thank you for having me as a guest, and my family as well.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure. Buona giornata. I hope you have a great summer.
Grazie, buona giornata, you too, and we wait everybody visiting us at Garofoli Winery.
We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.